We all trashed Joker 2 last year, talking about how it was going to be the biggest box office bomb of all time. Well, turns out, not even close. Not even in the top 10. And I think you already know who's holding down that #1 spot. And no, it's not John Carter, but it's another one of Disney's dumbest mistakes. But we'll get there. This is the list of the 10 biggest box office bombs in the history of Hollywood, adjusted for inflation, because, that part actually matters. Coming in at number 10, we have Flushed Away. I mean, even the title's kind of a punchline at this point. They really did just flush all that money down the drain. This was supposed to be another hit for DreamWorks Animation and Aardman. The same guys who made Chicken Run and Wallace and Gromit worked out great before. This time, not so much. DreamWorks put up $149 million for this one and partnered with Paramount for the release. But they picked the wrong release date. November 3rd, 2006. Problem was, Disney dropped the Santa Claus 3 on the exact same weekend. Paramount couldn't move their date because of all the corporate tie-ins and promo deals they'd already signed off on years before, so both movies just went head-to-head and basically ate each other's audience. DreamWorks spent big on marketing worldwide, but it tanked. The partnership with Aardman collapsed after that. Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was CEO at the time, flat out called it another money loser. He did say it was a great movie, though, and people who actually saw it liked it. But art and commerce, two very different things, and this one, on the commerce side, was a disaster. At number 9, Titan. This movie was supposed to save Fox Animation. Instead, it ended up shutting them down. Fox Animation actually got off to a strong start with Anastasia. That was Don Bluth's thing. He was the guy who left Disney in the 80s and went off to make his own stuff. For a while, Bluth's movies actually did better than Disney. He did The Land Before Time and The Secret of NIMH, all those weird animated movies that never would have happened under Uncle Walt. But by the late 90s, Disney was back on the horse again. Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, the whole Disney Renaissance. So Fox wanted another shot and dumped a pile of money into Titan. It was supposed to be their big animation comeback. But the whole production was a train wreck. For the first year and a half, it was run by a different team, and they burned through $30 million with pretty much nothing to show except some concept art. Bluth and his partner Gary Goldman got brought in to fix the mess, but by then, they had a reduced budget and only 19 months to pull it off. They did the best they could under the circumstances, but none of that helped. After the opening weekend barely made $10 million, Fox basically walked away from the film. All marketing stopped, the movie was yanked from theaters in less than 3 weeks, and Fox Animation was shut down a week after release. Layoffs happened by voicemail, projects in development just vanished, and that was the end of Fox Animation Studios. Number 8, Strange World. This is Disney's big animated family adventure, and it holds the crown for biggest bomb of 2022. Deadline reported it lost Disney $197 million. On top of that, Lightyear also lost Disney over $100 million in the same year. So that's 2 back-to-back animated disasters for the company, and a combined $300 million down the drain. Honestly, the writing was on the wall before it even hit theaters. Disney's track record with sci-fi is not great. Atlantis, Treasure Planet flopped back in the day, and there was zero buzz going into release. Plus, the movie was banned in at least 15 countries because of a same-sex relationship in the story, and at this point a lot of parents were just waiting for Disney and Pixar movies to hit streaming after they sent Soul, Luca, and Turning Red straight to Disney+. It sort of trained families to just skip theaters. A rival studio told The Hollywood Reporter, families were trained to wait to watch Disney films at home, so that's how you lose a couple of $100 million in one go. Alright, number 7. Yes, that's 4 animated movies in a row, I know, but Sinbad is a special case. This was DreamWorks' last big traditional animated feature, and it almost took the whole studio down with it. DreamWorks went old school with this one, but the timing couldn't have been worse. CGI was taking over, and Sinbad's classic animation just felt dated. They spent big money, brought in every cross-promotion they could think of, Baskin-Robbins, Hasbro toys, you name it, but audiences weren't having it. It opened at number 6, way behind stuff like Terminator 3 and even Finding Nemo, which had already been out for 6 weeks. The total loss was $214 million. DreamWorks officially gave up on traditional animation after this. Jeffrey Katzenberg admitted he knew halfway through making it that traditional animation was over, but couldn't say anything. He put it like this: "It was my worst period, without a doubt. I really suffered with Sinbad. We'd started on them so we had to finish, but I knew Shrek was the way forward and that I was in a sense lying. I couldn't tell anybody, but I knew." The movie also got slammed for swapping out Sinbad's Middle Eastern roots for Greek mythology and just making everyone in the movie white. Academic Jack Shaheen figured DreamWorks just didn't want to take any risks after 9/11, so they played it safe, and in the end, it didn't help at all. At number 6, we've got one of the most famous bombs ever, Cutthroat Island. This thing even made the Guinness Book of Records. Carolco Pictures was already circling the drain before this even hit theaters, and MGM, their distributor, was in the middle of getting sold, so basically, no marketing. Carolco picked Cutthroat Island over another project, an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie with Paul Verhoeven. It sounded like a safe bet, but then the budget exploded. Most of that mess came from director Rennie Harlin taking ages to cast a male lead to play opposite Geena Davis. By the time they locked that down, the sets were all wrong and had to be rebuilt. The production was so rough, Harlan later admitted he and Geena Davis begged not to make the movie, especially after Michael Douglas bailed on the project. He said, "At that point I was left there with my then-wife, Geena Davis, and myself, and a company that was already belly up. We begged to be let go. We begged that we didn't have to make this movie." In the end, Cutthroat Island barely made $10 million on a $100 million budget, and took Carolco down with it. And Hollywood avoided pirate movies for almost a decade after this. Peter Jackson produced it, Universal put up the cash, and Mortal Engines still ended up as one of the decade's biggest bombs. Mortal Engines is based on a young adult series Peter Jackson optioned all the way back in 2009. That's when Twilight blew up and everyone wanted a piece of that young adult audience, but they didn't even start moving on it until 2016. So by the time the movie hit in December 2018, the young adult trend was pretty much dead. The whole dystopian future young adult saves the day thing was just burned out. People were over it. Even earlier that same year, The Darkest Minds had already flopped trying to do the same thing. Universal dropped more than $120 million on marketing, trying to hype up this wild idea of cities rolling around on wheels. But honestly, the trailers were a mess. The CGI was all over the place, and if you didn't know the books, none of it made any sense. After the flop, everyone had a theory about what went wrong. Existing IP is all that works now. Predator cities were too weird to explain in a commercial. No big-name actors, nobody knew the books. All of those points are fair. But really, the script was just a generic young adult story that felt years out of date. It never had a real shot. At number 4, we've got The Flash. This was supposed to be the big DC reset. Huge budget. Something like $220 million just to film the thing, plus about $150 million on marketing. In the end, it scraped up $271 million worldwide. You can do the math. The studio lost over $200 million on this one. That was the biggest financial loss ever for a superhero movie at the time, until Disney lost even more money on the Marvels. Now, you can blame a lot of things. A lot of people do. It probably starts with the casting. Ezra Miller just never clicked for most people, and that only got worse once all the off-screen stuff hit the news. Every week it was a new headline, and not the good kind. The CGI wasn't great, and the word of mouth wasn't kind. The director had his own thoughts. He said it came down to the movie not hitting all 4 quadrants of the audience. As he put it, when you spend $200 million making a movie, Warner Brothers wants to bring even your grandmother to the theaters. But he also admitted, when you talk to people privately, a lot of them just don't care about The Flash, especially compared to Batman or Superman. That's just the way it is. Add in all the delays and Miller's off-camera problems, and it was just a perfect storm. This is one that's almost become a punchline at this point. Johnny Depp stars here as Tonto, Armie Hammer as the Lone Ranger. The movie got a massive budget, somewhere between $225 and $250 million, depending who you ask. and Disney poured another $150 million into marketing. The movie made $261 million worldwide, so that's a giant mess. This was at a time when Disney was already bleeding money from other projects. Mars Needs Moms had just lost them $144 million, and John Carter was ballooning out of control. There was a ton of pressure on this thing to do well. They even delayed production in 2011 to try to get the budget under control, and the cast and crew took pay cuts just to help out. None of that saved it. But the issues went way beyond money. There was controversy from the start over Depp's casting. He said he had native ancestry and wanted to chip away a little bit at the Tonto cliché, but critics weren't buying it. The film sits at 31% on Rotten Tomatoes. The running time is almost 2.5 hours. The story just kind of wanders in the middle. Can't decide if it wants to be a clever take on the old Lone Ranger myth or just another big Disney blockbuster. Now, number 2. The one everyone thinks is number 1. John Carter. Disney again, obviously. This one's almost legendary for how badly it tanked. And the crazy thing is, nobody is even sure how much money it really lost. Could be $200 million, could be $274 million. Disney officially wrote off $200 million on this movie. That's how big the disaster was. Andrew Stanton, who was used to running things like a Pixar film, just kept reshooting, rewriting, trying to fix it, and the budget just kept growing. Meanwhile, marketing was a mess. They changed the name from John Carter of Mars to just John Carter because after Mars Needs Moms bombed, they didn't want Mars anywhere near the title. The problem is, then nobody knew what the movie was about. The ads didn't explain who this guy was and didn't make the movie look interesting. A lot of finger-pointing about who to blame, but Stanton actually had creative control over those early trailers, and he just missed the mark. The movie was tracking badly for months. Disney kept throwing more money at it, but nothing worked. By the time they tried to fix the marketing, it was too late. Taylor Kitsch's career basically fell off a cliff after this, and then Battleship bombed 2 months later, and he was officially done for. And here we are. Number 1, The Marvels. Disney again. You're probably noticing a theme here. This is the Marvel Cinematic Universe sequel nobody wanted to see, and pretty much nobody did. The movie made $206 million worldwide, but a break-even point was around $440 million, so it lost a staggering $237 million by the time all the dust settled. You could tell even before it hit theaters that things weren't looking good. It's the lowest-grossing Marvel movie ever. Yes, even lower than The Incredible Hulk in 2008. Bob Iger, Disney's CEO, blamed it on COVID, said there wasn't enough executive supervision on set. That's one reason, sure, but it's not the only one. The biggest problem was nobody cared. The movie was only really made for the die-hard fans who watched 3 different Disney Plus shows. Everyone else was just waiting for it to hit streaming. But the main thing is, there's nothing new here. The trailers were just generic jokes, generic villains, generic action. It looked like every other Marvel thing, only now people aren't going to theaters unless you give them something actually interesting. So, The Marvels ends up as the worst box office failure in movie history, at least for now.